understand it. As the federal government, we have responsibilities in health as well as the provincial governments. We need to work closely with other levels of government. Yes, that's true. But the federal government also has obligations under federal legislation. The time for question and comments is over for now. There will be 3 more minutes for the honorable member when debate resumes on this motion. And now we will move on to member statements.
A commencer avec l'honorable député de Vaudreuil.
The honourable member for Vaudreuil-Soulanges by distance. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Today, during the 16 days of activism against sex-based violence, or gender-based violence, rather, I want to highlight the impact that the pandemic has had on victims of domestic violence. A number of women's shelters like La Passerelle in my riding of Vaudreuil-Soulanges have had an increased number of requests for their services since the pandemic began. This means that more women and children are looking for help in order to find to get out of dangerous situations.
Report, which showed that there was an increase in calls for wellness checks and domestic disturbances. We know that social isolation and unstable employment situations increase the instances of domestic violence and that the majority continue to suffer in silence. Je veux donc remercier l'équipe à la...
I want to thank the team at La Passerelle for their important work for our community. I encourage the people in my riding to support them in their mission. Together we can spread the word and put an end to domestic violence. Thank you.
The honourable member for Richmond Centre.
On November 27, I witnessed the delivery of 450 high-quality winter jackets by Chi Foundation Canada CEO David Tan to the Aboriginal Mother Centre Society, AMCS, in East Vancouver. Tamora Gowins, the executive director of AMCS, this donation was timely. Their society has been moving mothers and children at risk off the streets and providing them with all the support they need under one roof. Through my connection, Charlestown, a garment factory owner, donated a total of 182 boxes of clothes for Chi to reach different nations. Besides AMCS, brand new winter jackets are also delivered to Native AIDS Health Centre in Vancouver, Leeward Nation in Mount Currie, Summers First Nation in Abbotsford, and Seabird Island Band in Agassiz. Chi has been serving these nations well in different capacities. A big thank you to you all. Merci beaucoup.
The honourable member for Vancouver Centre.
Mr. Speaker, on World AIDS Day, I honor a Canadian hero who 30 years ago turned tragedy into hope. During the AIDS pandemic, Dr. Peter Jepson Young, a young Vancouver physician, contracted AIDS. Instead of submitting to fear, he chose to shed a light on the deadly disease through a CBC series, The Dr. Peter Diaries. From 1990 until his death in 1992, for 111 episodes, Canadians glued to our TVs shared Dr. Peter's pain, watched the disease devastate his body, listened as he explained every stage in clear detail with candor and humor. Nominated for an Academy Award, Dr. Peter Diaries fought stereotypes and broke down the social taboos around HIV/AIDS, shaping how Canadians perceived and understood the disease and those who suffered it. Dr. Peter's legacy lives on in the work of the Dr. Peter Centre in Vancouver, one of the world's most progressive care facilities for persons with HIV/AIDS.
The honourable member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, I have the honour of marking the birthdays of 2 new centenarians. The younger of the 2, James W. Price, will blow out his 100 candles on December 30th. Mr. Price was born in Cape Breton and came to Drummondville when he was 8. He worked for 45 years at La Célanise, which was a textile company in the region. He still lives in his home, and he goes out to get some air every day. And today, Mr. Speaker, is the birthday of Yvette Mathieu Lafonde. She lived and raised her family in Saint-Cyril, where she was a teacher for 33 years. She lives with her daughter, Denise, who gives her a little hand. I had the pleasure of her company last Friday. I could have spent all day listening to her tell me stories about her life. No doubt that's why we have already agreed to see each other next year. Mr. Price and Ms. Mathieu Lafond aren't old. They have just become young longer than we have been, and I want to wish them the happiest birthdays. The Honourable Member for Châteauguay-Lacolle. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are in the midst of the international campaign. It's an annual 16-day campaign of activism against gender-based violence. This campaign will end on December 6th, which is the anniversary of the sad events that occurred at the Polytechnic in Montreal. I want to take this opportunity to highlight the excellent work being done on the ground by thousands of community organizations across the country who are fighting to put an end to gender-based violence. Everyone is entitled to live in a world without violence. Victims need support and assistance. I want to take this opportunity to thank the organizations in Châteauguay-Lacolle, like Espace Châteauguay, Les Calacs, and the Ressource Shelter. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Elgin, Middlesex, London.
Mr. Speaker, Christmas cheer, community spirit, and a creative alternative to our traditional holiday parades are needed more than ever this year. I am ecstatic to share with residents of Elgin, Middlesex, London, a Thrill of Hope stationary Christmas park parade in partnership with MPP Jeff Urich. A Thrill of Hope will be taking place in St. Thomas's Pinafore Park on December 4th, 5th, and 6th from 4 p.m. till 9 p.m. nightly. This event will bring together community groups, businesses, and service clubs from across Elgin, Middlesex, London to install lit-up floats or stationary displays along the roadway in Pinafore Park that the community can drive by and enjoy. For residents who don't have a vehicle, a safe shuttle service will be available at the Queso station. There will be a collection of non-perishable food and monetary donations that will be distributed across the riding. Our event has been planned and approved by the Southwestern Ontario Public Health and will be in regular contact with them going on. A huge thank you to our planning committee, volunteers, the St. Thomas Optimist Club, Mayor Joe Preston, and all of the others for all of your work. I'm very excited to be sharing this with all the constituents of Elgin, Middlesex, London, the Thrill of Hope. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for West Vancouver, Sunshine Coast, Sea to Sky Country.
Mr. Speaker, I stand in the House today to honour the exceptional work of Sean Eckford, who has made extraordinary contributions to our community and country throughout his decades-long broadcasting and journalism career. Sean consistently provides residents on the Sunshine Coast and beyond with quality reporting and reliable information that is trusted and appreciated by all. From his early days at the CBC covering Parliament Hill to his managerial role at Coast FM and his more recent tenure at the Coast Reporter, Sean has for so long been an important fixture of our community. His integrity, sincerity, and depth of knowledge is an example for fellow journalists, politicians, and citizens. The relationship between the press and our elected officials is a pillar of our political discourse and democracy. Accurate, fair, and rigorous journalism is more important than ever, and Sean's career epitomized that ethos. Sean, thank you for serving our community and country. Wishing you a well-deserved retirement.
The Honourable Member for Guelph.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to celebrate the achievements of one of Guelph's and Canada's most prolific authors, Thomas King, who recently was named a Companion of the Order of Canada for his enduring contributions to the preservation and recognition of Indigenous culture. His work is regularly recognized as part of the Canada Reads and Indigenous Reads programs, including his latest book, Indians on Vacation. As the holiday season approaches, I want to encourage all Canadians to support the work of Canadian authors and illustrators like Tom by supporting our incredible independent bookstores. Let's shop local and read Canadian. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Grand Prairie, Mackenzie.
Mr. Speaker, for many, it's been a tough year. Too many families across the Peace Country have suffered the pain of financial loss and loneliness over the past months. I've heard stories of families facing this Christmas season without a loved one lost to suicide or overdose. I spent hours with moms and dads who have lost their jobs or their businesses or had crop failure. They don't know how they're going to pay the bills, never mind buy Christmas gifts for the kids. For many, it feels hopeless. But I believe that there's reason for hope, because in these dark and challenging times, I've also witnessed the selfless giving of people who are struggling themselves. I've seen the ingenuity and the creativity of small business owners who have struggled back with the help of their neighbors and even competitors to build opportunities for others. I've seen churches and service clubs who have found ways to make connections with the lonely, the hungry, and the heartbroken. Mr. Speaker, this Christmas season, I have hope for the Peace Country because the people who call our region home.
The honourable member for Whitby.
Mr. Speaker, over this past summer, a senseless act of violence occurred in my riding of Whitby. Kimberly was out for an evening walk and was brutally attacked and beaten to within an inch of her life. Our community was shocked and devastated by this senseless act of random violence. As a community, we stand together against gender-based violence. We stand together to support Kimberly, her family and friends, and all others that have been victims of gender-based violence. I'm truly proud to see how our community has come together to support Kimberly and her family, and I'm in awe of the grace and resilience displayed by her. When I spoke to Kimberly about this incident, she wanted only good to come of what happened to her. Mr. Speaker, sadly, incidents like the one that Kimberly went through remind us that gender-based violence remains a major problem in this country. And I believe we all have a part to play in ending gender-based violence, including and especially men who must take an active role in combating gender-based violence. Our government has developed the first ever national action plan on gender-based violence, and I know this week is the 16 days of activism to end gender-based violence. I encourage all Canadians to get involved in helping end gender-based violence. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, Lisa Freeman's father was murdered 30 years ago. The violent killer was given life in prison, but in March, Lisa found out he could be released this fall. She relived the pain to prepare a victim's statement for the unexpected parole hearing, but a lack of action for victims' rights stole her chance to face him. A private member's bill spearheaded by our colleague from Oshawa will be tabled today in the Senate by Senator Boisvenu. Both tireless advocates for victims' rights in Canada. It would give transparency to victims' families who are often left out of the loop or find out at the last minute about parole requests and hearing dates. The Victims' Bill of Rights says victims and families have the right to know about and to attend parole hearings, but the system puts up roadblocks. Murderers and rapists are given the privilege, but victims' families are treated like a second thought. That's backwards. Lisa says, quote, "The system will bring you to your knees." Like so many others across Canada, she wants to be seen and to be heard about something that impacts her whole life. Victims and their loved ones should not be casualties of the system. Let's work to put them first.
The honourable member for Selkirk, Interlake Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, today I pay tribute to one of our fallen heroes, Private John Lambert. This brave young man wanted to serve so badly that he lied about his age to enlist with the Newfoundland Regiment when he was only 16. He fought throughout Europe during the First World War and made the ultimate sacrifice, dying in the Battle of Langemarck at the young age of 17. However, like so many others, his body was not recovered and identified. During an archaeological dig in Belgium in 2016, a soldier's remains were discovered. Thanks to modern technology and DNA sampling, the remains were identified as those of Private John Lambert. This young man died a hero, and it's only fitting that he has now been laid to rest alongside his fellow soldiers at the Commonwealth War Grave, New Irish Farm Cemetery in Belgium. In sharing Private Lambert's story, we remember the service and sacrifice of all our fallen heroes. May they rest in peace.
Before we go to the next SO31, I just want to remind the honourable members that people are speaking, and I realize that it's COVID and we're 6 feet apart, so we have to speak a little bit louder to hear each other. But please, let's show some respect for the person who's speaking. The honourable member for Esquimalt Saanich-Sooke.
Mr. Speaker, today marks World AIDS Day. Let us unite again to fight HIV/AIDS, to show support for people living with HIV, and to commemorate the many who've died from AIDS-related illnesses. A future with zero new HIV infections is in reach, something as a gay man of a certain age I never thought I'd see. Knowledge is the key to eliminating the spread of HIV. People who know their status are far less likely to spread the virus, and that makes self-testing a crucial factor in HIV prevention. Now that Canada has finally approved self-test kits, the government must ensure that Indigenous, racialized, low-income people and those who live in rural and northern communities actually have access to these kits. Improving access to the most marginalized and those who face the largest barriers to testing and treatment is the only way for Canada to meet its commitment to the UN AIDS 90-90-90 goals and the only way to eradicate HIV once and for all.
The Honourable Member for Manicouagan. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Bloc Québécois, I offer a hearty congratulations to the member for Salaberry-Sarrois for having received the Marie-Victoire Félix de Michel Prize during the 2020 Gala for the Rassemblement pour un pays souverain. This shows her commitment because it is a commitment, if not a gift of oneself, but a deliberate and necessary choice to unconditionally invest oneself in putting words into action and getting involved in something outside of ourselves. She embodies perseverance. She has walked towards love, like Miron, the writer, wrote. She is this movement which does not submit to the passage of time, but harnesses the horizon in order to push forward. She is full of humility, the silence that she gives space to others to allow them to fully exist. She is welcoming and unifying. She is with us in this country that we still have left to do. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Battlefords Lloydminster.
Mr. Speaker, COVID-19 is taking a heavy toll on the mental health and the well-being of Canada's seniors. Temporary measures to protect our vulnerable populations have become less and less temporary. Seniors have been distanced from their loved ones. Many have missed birthdays, holidays, and family milestones. They want their lives back. Canadians want their lives back. To accomplish that, we know that we need rapid and mass testing, and we need safe and effective vaccines. Yet yesterday's fall economic statement offered them no real plan for testings or vaccine. There was no clarity, there was no timelines, and there was no plan for safe family reunification. Mr. Speaker, the Christmas holidays are just around the corner, and seniors who are waiting to hold their grandbabies in their arms, they deserve better. They deserve certainty, clarity, and competence from this government. They deserve a real plan.
The Honourable Member for Hochelaga. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm a bit surprised to see how in recent weeks the Conservatives are trying to improve their image with women. It will take more than words to convince us women of that. I would like to mention certain facts. When we introduced wage equity legislation, the Conservatives voted against it. When we proposed historic funding to strengthen the women's movement, they also voted against it. In the recent platform of the Conservative leader, the word gender is absent. And when women are mentioned, it's almost exclusively as mothers and not as women entrepreneurs or those who contribute to the labor market. In addition, the Conservative leader has frequently highlighted the fact that he would not prevent his MPs from tabling anti-abortion legislation. On this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we know that decisions about reproduction belong to women. Women know that the only party that proposes progressive, feminist policies and that always stands up for women's rights is our government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Before we move on to the next stage, I'd like to remind members who are virtual to use a microphone.
Are joining us who are virtual, whether they're asking questions or answering the question. Now, we want to make sure that everyone hears it and that it's translated, interpreted correctly. So please use House-approved microphones and headsets. Thank you. Oral questions. Choral, yes. It's a Freudian slip if I ever heard one. Oral questions. Question orale, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the general in charge of vaccine distribution in the United States said that all Americans will be vaccinated by June. The Prime Minister has suggested that only a few Canadians will be vaccinated by September. This morning, the Deputy Prime Minister said she hoped vaccinations would start by the summer. Why can't this government give Canadians any certainty on what date they will first have access to a COVID-19 vaccine?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this government worked hard throughout the summer and secured access to tens of millions of doses of vaccines for Canadians. We have the most diverse portfolio of potential vaccines of anyone because there is right now no effective vaccine against COVID-19. Countries around the world are working to approve many of the promising candidates, but we don't know which one is going to be most effective, which ones are going to arrive quickly. That's why we secured as a government access to the largest range of vaccines and more vaccines per capita potentially than any other country. We are Canadian.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is responsible for presenting a comprehensive plan for vaccine distribution for Canadians. So far, all we get are Liberal buzzwords like a robust portfolio and no details. 7 months ago, the Prime Minister announced with great fanfare their joint venture on a vaccine with China. Now, the China deal fell apart at the end of the summer, and since then, they've been scrambling to come up with plans for a vaccine. Why did the Prime Minister put the lives of Canadians in the hands of communist China when it came to a COVID vaccine?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition shouldn't just make stuff up. The fact is that we secured contracts for vaccines in August. And right now, we are moving forward with the approvals for 4 different vaccines, Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, and now Johnson & Johnson at Health Canada, so that we can be sure that as soon as those vaccines arrive, we will be able to deliver them to Canadians. We know we need to get through this with vaccines, and that's why this government has worked hard to ensure vaccines are there for Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it is time for the Prime Minister to be honest with Canadians. Last May, they announced a joint venture with China, the CanSino deal. That was going to be their major vaccine distribution plan for Canada. That deal fell apart in August, Mr. Speaker, and then in September, they changed the regulatory structure and started dealing with Moderna and all the other companies. So my question for the Prime Minister, it is time for truth. Why did the Prime Minister put all of our vaccine eggs in the communist China basket?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Again, Mr. Speaker, that is simply not true. We worked, as Canadians would expect us to cover all the bases, to try and reach out to get the most diverse portfolio of vaccine candidates of any country around the world, and we did. Some of them didn't pan out, but many others have. That's why the 4 top vaccines around the world are now currently in regulatory approval from Health Canada, and we have secured tens of millions of doses of those vaccines. That's the work this government is doing. That's the plan we're delivering on.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, France announced that it would be vaccinating its entire population by June. The same thing in the U.S. This morning, the Deputy Prime Minister announced that only a few Canadians will be vaccinated by the summer. The delays by this government are endangering people's lives, and Canadians want a plan. Where is the plan for the distribution of vaccines? Who will be vaccinated first and when? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are working with the provinces and experts, and have been since last spring. First of all, to sign vaccine contracts and to ensure an appropriate delivery of vaccines as quickly as possible. We will continue to do so. As experts have said, we expect to have the majority of Canadians vaccinated before September 2021. We hope to have more done prior to that. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, this week CNN disclosed that China hid the truth surrounding COVID, and the Liberal government is so pro-China that they decided to work with the country in order on a vaccine. And that plan fell apart. Can the government and will the Prime Minister admit that we don't have a vaccination because of Canada's partnership with China? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives once again are playing political games. No one in the world has an approved vaccine. We are all working on different candidates, and there are 4 that are currently in the regulatory process with Health Canada. Yes, there was a partnership with CanSino that was extremely effective in the past on Ebola, and it was something we looked at. We have agreements with 7 different companies across the world. They will deliver vaccines for Canadians in the future. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a surprise for the government. We did crunch some numbers, and health is a provincial jurisdiction. The Quebec and the provinces have put forth unanimous asks on issues with respect to the transfers, which are critical for taking care of the most vulnerable people. Now, the Prime Minister has postponed his meeting with the provincial premiers until December 10th, and it's really good because after that, the Parliament won't even be sitting. So what proposals does the Prime Minister have for the provinces? Isn't he going to go there empty-handed? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, for 10 months now, we have been working hand-in-hand with the provinces to help them with their health systems, be it through the Red Cross, with the Canadian Armed Forces, the billions of dollars that we transferred to help the provinces with their health systems during the pandemic. We will continue to do so. At the same time, I will be speaking with the premiers and not with political party leaders. The Honourable Member. True, we're just elected officials in the House of Commons. Now, the Prime Minister keeps saying, look, I've respected provincial jurisdiction. However, this morning, the Minister from Quebec, with respect to national standards, said it was unacceptable for Quebec and the provinces. With respect to daycare and pharmacare, he said he would be seeking to opt out with compensation. So that's not working exactly the way the Prime Minister wants us to believe. We're talking about health and human lives. Does the Prime Minister will the Prime Minister acknowledge that he will authorize this opting out? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, there is no jurisdiction when it comes to the dignity and the lives of our seniors. We're going to all work together to protect our seniors. What we saw in the spring across the country, including in Quebec, was unacceptable. What happened in the long-term care facilities, that's why the federal government worked with the province, with all provinces, so that they could take control over the system and be there to help seniors. We will always work to protect seniors, regardless of where they live across the country, because that's what Canadians expect us to do. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
We all know that seniors have been particularly hard hit by COVID-19, not just because they're vulnerable, but also because of the isolation. Many seniors have seen their programs canceled and they can't come together and connect the way they usually were able to. Now, we know that the medical experts are saying that there's enough COVID vaccines to cover about 3 million Canadians. There are over 4.5 million seniors over the age of 70. So what's the plan? Which seniors will get the vaccine and which will have to wait?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, every step of the way we have worked with health experts and scientists to determine the prioritization of vaccines on the rollout. We need to get to the most vulnerable. We need to get to our frontline healthcare workers, and that is exactly what we're going to do. We're working with the provinces on establishing that list, but I can tell you that the vaccines that are coming in are going to go to those people who most need them most urgently. And because Canada has secured tens of millions of doses of the vaccines, we will ensure that everyone gets vaccines in the coming months.
Member for Burnaby South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Shamattawa First Nations community in northern Manitoba is faced with a COVID-19 outbreak, and they are in urgent need of help. They're already dealing with a housing crisis and TB. Like many other remote and northern Indigenous communities, they have underfunding, under-resourcing, and a lack of access to basic things like the internet to deal with. The chief has asked for military to be sent to the nation, First Nation, to provide testing, tracing, and safety measures. Will the Prime Minister heed the call of the chief and send in the military supports that they need?
Honourable Prime Minister.
From the very beginning of this pandemic, we've worked closely with Indigenous communities and Indigenous leadership across this country to ensure that they have everything they need. We saw the first wave hit far less hard in Indigenous communities than in many other communities because of the leadership of Indigenous communities and the partnership that we've been able to establish with them. We will continue to work with local and territorial governments as well as remote communities to ensure that everything they have, they need.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Canadians want their lives back. But yesterday, they got no plan to fix the vaccine mess that this government has made. They want paychecks, but instead yesterday they just got more credit card bills. The national credit card will grow by $10,000 per man, woman, and child in Canada. The deficit is 8 times bigger than the previous all-time record, bigger than any other country in the G20. And yet, we won't have vaccines before billions of other people have them. The only way to get Canadians safely back to work and paychecks in their pockets is a vaccine. When will every Canadian who wants one have one?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the leader of the official opposition claims to believe in unions and in supporting union workers. So I'm sure the Conservatives will be interested in what the Teamsters had to say about our fall economic statement. And I quote, "Today's numbers show that Ottawa is dead serious about supporting working class and middle class Canadians through this terrible crisis. The pandemic is sadly far from over, and over the coming months, continued government spending will be the only thing keeping millions of honest, hard-working families from total ruin." I couldn't have...
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Monsieur le Président, la question c'était pas...
Mr. Speaker, the question was when? When will Canadians have access to a vaccination? The only way to deliver paychecks safely to people is if they're protected and vaccinated if they choose to be vaccinated. So, Mr. Speaker, with the highest deficit in the history of this country, the biggest credit card bill, will the government finally tell us when Canadians will have access to a vaccine? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Start by setting the record straight on what I said about vaccines this morning, since the leader of the official opposition misconstrued my words, something which is becoming a bad habit of his. As Moderna's chief medical officer said this week, and I quote, "Canada is in the front row on vaccines. I know that, and I know our rollout will be a success." And since the leader of the official opposition mentioned France, let me inform him that the EU said this week their regulators will not take a decision on Pfizer until December 29th, on Moderna not until July 12th.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-Les-Rables. Madam Speaker, now on the other side they like to lecture, but what was presented yesterday is a political statement. not an economic one. But Canadians won't be fooled. They understood that, Mr. Speaker. An unprecedented deficit and is, and I quote Emmanuel de la Traverse, a reflection of the Trudeau government's ideology. It's certainly an electoral deficit. Canadians want concrete answers, not a list of election promises. It looks like a Christmas list. When will we see a vaccination plan? When will we see a clear plan? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, when will the Conservatives have a financial plan, a clear and defined plan? On Sunday at Tout le monde en parle, the Leader of the Opposition assured Canadians that he would provide the same level of support that we have provided under a Conservative government. So, what do the Conservatives really believe?
Le député de Mégantic-l'Érable.
The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, the economic statement is disappointing. There's a lack of certainty around vaccines. There's lack of clarity for budgets. It shows a flagrant lack of skills for economic recovery. And above all, it shows the Liberals have lost control over public finances. The minister says she put in place fiscal safeguards, but she's careful not to protect Canadians from her reckless spending. When will we have a plan with dates? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, allow me to remind the member opposite that our approach has already enabled us to create jobs. Many of the jobs were recovered, jobs lost during the pandemic. Compared to the United States, we're doing far better. Canada, in the third quarter, had the highest rate of growth. And that is a success story, Mr. Speaker.
For Calgary Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, today the Prime Minister said that it would be September before most Canadians would be able to get a COVID-19 vaccine. But the Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs said early January and then just January. And today the Deputy Prime Minister said before the summer. So my question is to the Health Minister. Is she content to keep letting her colleagues give their best guess on a very important issue to Canadians, or will she finally take responsibility and give us an actual date?
Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, every step of the way, my colleagues and I have worked incredibly hard, hand in glove with provinces and territories to A, secure the best portfolio of vaccines in the world, B, to secure the most doses per capita in the world, and C, to strengthen the regulatory process at Health Canada to give them every opportunity, every resource they need to accelerate their work. Mr. Speaker, Canadians should be proud and confident we have a plan, and they too will get vaccinated when the vaccines are proven to be safe and effective.
Well, member for Calgary Nose Hill.
So the answer is no. So the Prime Minister said September for vaccine delivery. The Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs said January or early January. The Minister of Procurement said the new year. The Deputy Prime Minister said before summer. And today the Health Minister said early 2021. COVID-19 is a deadly disease that is crippling our economy. Why is the Health Minister content to keep allowing her and her colleagues to play vaccine date bingo with Canadian lives?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd invite the member opposite to get a briefing on vaccine work, as I've repeatedly offered her on testing. In fact, her remarks indicate that she doesn't understand how many moving parts there are in vaccine delivery. But I want to say this to Canadians.
Minister, I'm very interested in hearing the response, just like I'm interested in hearing the questions. Just when it gets loud, it makes it very difficult for everyone to hear. So I just want to remind everyone that we want to hear the answers and the questions. I'm sure the honourable members want to hear what I'm saying, correct? I'll just wait for him to stop. Okay, good. We're done? Thank you. Oh, Okay, Madam Minister, you can continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I was saying, look, we have the best portfolio of vaccines in the world. We have the most doses per capita in the world. We're working hand in glove with companies like Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca. In fact, we were the first country in the world to receive applications from the 4 leading companies. You know why, Mr. Speaker? Because our Health Canada regulators are gold standard. The world looks to Canada for safety and efficacy, and we are here for Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, in the midst of a pandemic, how can you write a 259-page economic statement without mentioning seniors? There's not a measure in there for them when they're the most affected by the pandemic. No health transfer when Quebec needs money to support quality of care. No pension increase to support their purchasing power. Not even a second installment of the special payment when we know that the pandemic will last another year because vaccines will arrive late. How can the government justify this to seniors? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. From the outset, we have worked with the provinces and territories to protect Canada's most vulnerable by supporting the work of the Red Cross and by deploying members of the Canadian Armed Forces to some long-term care facilities. In the economic statement, we committed up to $1 billion for safety in long-term care facilities to continue to help the provinces and territories protect our seniors. The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, I was talking about more money in seniors' pockets, at least in the throne speech. The government had raised the possibility of increasing the old age pension. That wasn't enough, but at least the possibility existed. Today, not a word for seniors in the economic update. The Liberals let them down. Seniors are the ones who suffer the most from COVID. They're the ones dying from it. They're the ones who suffered the harshest confinement measures. They're the ones who are going to be spending Christmas alone this year to protect themselves. How can the government abandon them today? The Honourable Minister.
Speaker, for many months, we've been providing support for seniors through tax-free payments and enhanced community supports. The fall economic statement reiterated our government's support for seniors by establishing a new $1 billion safe long-term care fund that will help provinces and territories protect seniors in long-term care. We're also committing $38.5 million to support training up to 4,000 personal support worker interns. And we'll move forward in establishing the foundational elements of a national universal pharmacare. It's clear that we will always stand with seniors.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, before the COVID crisis, the Prime Minister already demonstrated his inability to manage crises. And here's proof. On Friday, he said to everyone that by September, the majority of Canadians would be vaccinated. And I asked the Minister yesterday, does that mean 51%? And the Minister said we've got 70%. 70% of Canadians would be vaccinated. So can the Minister use some documents and show us how she arrived at that figure? Or did she improvise it during question period? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are working hard to ensure that Canadians can be vaccinated when the time comes. When we have a vaccine in Canada, we are working with the provinces and the territories to create a distribution plan so that Canadians can be vaccinated. Our approach has always been guided by science, and nothing will change. In collaboration with experts like the Advisory Committee and other experts in public health, we will ensure that Canadians have a vaccine from COVID-19. The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, if we talk about planning, well, we can look at our allies. Yesterday, French CBC said in a report that Germany doesn't yet have a vaccine, but already has a very detailed logistics plan in place. They've presented it to their fellow citizens a couple of weeks ago. And it says that it'll take 2 minutes for each German citizen to be vaccinated. The Netherlands, Belgium and France are some of the other countries that have made their plans public. So we look ridiculous in the eyes of the world. When will we see a detailed plan?
The
Honourable Government House Leader. The Conservatives are playing partisan politics on vaccinations, and they're trying to make Canadians afraid, Mr. Speaker. That's unacceptable for months now, and they don't like to hear it either, but that's for months now we've been working with the provinces. We've been preparing the process for rolling out vaccines. We've appointed General Fortier. We are working together. They don't like to admit it, but we're going to be delivering the goods for Canadians.
Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Well, Mr. Speaker, millions of people around the world will start getting vaccinated for COVID-19 next week. Canadians will be stuck at home watching it all happen on TV. The Liberals say they have a plan, but they're keeping everyone in the dark. Canadians deserve to know, Mr. Speaker, how many troops will be deployed to distribute COVID-19 vaccines? Who is the top logistics officer who will be in charge of this distribution? Where's the plan?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite, I understand, has a great deal of knowledge about the Canadian Armed Forces, and I want to say to him that he should be expecting the same level of excellence that he would have come to know during his time with the forces. We are so pleased that Major General Danny Fortin has embedded himself and his team within the Public Health Agency of Canada. This builds on the partnerships across the government to safely deploy vaccines. And Mr. Speaker, I'll tell you this, we will not deploy vaccines until we're certain they're safe in Canada. That's the role of Health Canada. We're world-class regulators. Canadians can be confident in this.
The Honourable Member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, I have confidence in the Canadian Armed Forces. I don't have confidence in this government. They say they have the plan, but it doesn't sound like they have a plan. How can Canadians trust this Liberal government when they refuse to answer simple questions? Canadians deserve answers, so I'll try this again. How many personnel are being trained to inoculate Canadians against COVID-19? How many military aircraft are ready to deploy to distribute these vaccines? Where's the plan?
Well, Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the member opposite doesn't realize that actually immunization is done by provinces and territories. In fact, they have the jurisdiction to deliver health care, and the federal government is stepping up to help them in that responsibility by acquiring vaccines, by ensuring we have a logistical plan to deploy the complicated vaccines. But let me say this, Mr. Speaker, the provinces and territories have successfully, over the last few weeks, vaccinated 16 million Canadians for influenza. They have the expertise. They have the people to do that. We're going to support them.
Well, Member for Vancouver, Kingsway.
This week, the U.S. received vaccines on American soil, so they're ready to distribute once approved by the FDA. In contrast, Canada has either refused or neglected to accept vaccines while waiting for Health Canada's approval. Clearly, making arrangements to accelerate vaccinations is smart policy. Having vaccines on Canadian soil ready to be rolled out once approved will save time and lives. The Liberals are either refusing to receive vaccines now or are unprepared to do so. Which is it, and why are they falling behind the United States?
Well, Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I stay focused on Canada's plan, and I can tell you it's one of the best in the world. And you know why, Mr. Speaker? Because we have 7 of the most promising vaccines in our portfolio. We have more doses per capita. We're working closely with manufacturers like Pfizer and Moderna, AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson just applied on Monday. We were the first country in the world to get their application. And here's what the Moderna's chief medical advisor said. Canada's in the front row. That's because we acted early, we secured contracts early, and we're well placed to vaccinate Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
Mr. Speaker, that wasn't an answer to my colleague's question. In Canada, we have learned that only 3 million doses of vaccine will be available by March, while other countries are stocking up so that there is no delay in getting them to their citizens once they are approved. If we don't take swift action, Canadians will have to live with the pandemic for months longer than other countries. The toll on seniors, families, and small businesses is already significant. Why won't the Prime Minister ensure that Canada stock up on the vaccine while we await for Health Canada approval?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'll just repeat, we have the best portfolio in the world. In fact, we have the most doses per capita in the world, and that's because of an aggressive procurement strategy at the very beginning. And not only that, Mr. Speaker, we are working hand in glove with manufacturers around the world. Canada is well situated. The manufacturers themselves are saying we're well situated. And on top of that, Mr. Speaker, we have the expertise in a public health care system that knows how to vaccinate Canadians. So I have confidence in Canadians, I have confidence in the regulators, and I have a confidence in the provinces and territories that will get this done.
Honourable Member for Etobicoke Centre.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Environment and Climate Change. Minister, Canadians, I think, and people in my community in Etobicoke Centre want clean air, healthier communities, and they also want a strong economy while protecting the environment for our children and our grandchildren. And that is why constituents in my riding of Etobicoke Centre want governments to take real and meaningful action on climate change. Now, today is the coming into force day of the amendments to the Federal Sustainable Development Act. So, Minister, could you share with this House and with my constituents in Etobicoke Centre how this is helping us in the fight against climate change?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I certainly want to thank the member from Etobicoke Centre for his deep commitment to tackling climate change. Today, an act to amend the Federal Sustainable Development Act came into force. These important amendments expand the number of federal organizations who must contribute to the good work done under this act from 27 to 95. It will make the Act more accountable to Parliament. It will include new principles around intergenerational equity, openness, results and delivery, and the involvement of Indigenous peoples. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to climate change, Canadians expect the federal government to lead by example, as we saw yesterday in the Fall Economic Statement, and the improvements to the Federal Sustainable Development Act help us do just that.
The Honourable Member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Mr. Speaker, the International Trade Minister's appearance at committee on Monday left us with more questions than answers about the Canada-UK agreement. We still don't have the text. We still don't have the legislation. And now we found out there's no plan for mitigating tariffs if the government can't get this agreement done by the December 31st deadline. The minister says she cares about certainty for our importers and exporters. So when will the minister release this plan?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our priority is to provide predictability and stability for Canadian businesses who trade with the UK. And now that we have concluded the negotiations, the next step is for the agreement to be readied for signing by Canada and the UK. For Canada, this means tabling in the House of Commons for debate and parliamentary scrutiny in accordance with established practices. I look forward to working with colleagues from all sides of the House to support the timely parliamentary approval of this TCA, and our government is actively working on how to mitigate the impact of any implementation delay so that businesses can rely on the continuity that they need. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the minister has used buzzwords like stability and predictability and certainty, but this means nothing if there's not a plan in place. The minister told committee that she doesn't want to make up policy on the fly. Well, she wouldn't have to do this if the government had taken this seriously from the very beginning and not leave it till the final month in the final year. So can the minister tell us why she still has no policies for disruptive tariffs if a Canada-UK agreement is not finalized by the end of the year?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I can assure the honourable member that our government is actively working on how to mitigate the impact of any implementation delays so that businesses can indeed rely on the continuity that they need. It is excellent that we have worked with the United Kingdom to come to this continuity agreement so that there is that predictability and stability for Canadian businesses. I would like to work with all colleagues on all sides of the House to ensure that we take this agreement timely through the parliamentary process.
Honourable Member for Edmonton West.
Mr. Speaker, last night the President of the Treasury Board admitted he conducted zero due diligence on the $900 million WE deal. Now, the Treasury Board exists to ensure government spending is vetted and that all rules are followed. So either the President of the Treasury Board simply doesn't know his job, or he deliberately turned a blind eye so that his colleagues could continue to line the pockets of Liberal insiders. Minister, which is it?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very glad and proud to be able to answer this question. As a member knows, since I told him just last night, the Treasury Board Secretariat is there to provide both guidelines and make sure that authorities are at the disposal of appropriate ministers when it comes to implementing new policies and programs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Before I continue, I just want to bring up one point. I notice on both sides, the questions are being asked of the Speaker. I'm sure they don't want the answers from me. Please ask the questions through the Speaker and answer through the Speaker. L'honorable député de Bellechasse-les-Échemins-Lévis.
The honourable member for Bellechasse-les-Échemins-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals claim to care about French in Quebec, but the reality is very different. Yesterday, 2 Liberal ministers confirmed to the Standing Committee on Government Operations that not only were Treasury Board rules not respected for the We Charity contract, but that no official languages analysis was done. The Liberals claim to be defenders of French, but ultimately they just don't seem to care. Why did the Minister of Inclusion and Youth ignore Treasury Board rules when it comes to the We Charity scandal in Quebec? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It goes without saying that we respect not only the spirit, but the letter of the Official Languages Act. My colleague, the President of the Treasury Board, is doing his hard work to ensure that we respect official languages, and that's what we do. And if my colleagues has any other questions on that, we will be pleased to answer. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe, Bagot. Mr. Speaker, in the economic update, the government said that it was going to help the industries most affected by the pandemic. That's all very well, but once again, nothing about the aerospace industry. When planes have been stuck on the ground for 8 months, it's very discouraging. We're talking 20,000 jobs that are threatened on the short term in the next 2 years without a policy for aerospace. We're talking about a network of SMEs that is fragile and that may be bought at bargain basement prices by foreign companies. We're going to lose control of our economy. What will it take for the minister to take action to protect Quebec's global expertise? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, our government is very much aware of the importance of aerospace and the air sector. With that in mind, in the economic update from yesterday, we promised $206 million over 2 years to support regional air transport, $186 million to assist small airports, $700 million to assist large airports, and we are now in discussions with large airlines. The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe Bagot. Mr. Speaker, we're not talking about air transport. We're talking about the aerospace industry. Let me just say that. For months, we've been told that there's going to be a solution, but there wasn't a single word about aerospace in the throne speech or in the economic update from yesterday. At a certain point, silence speaks louder than words, Mr. Speaker. If the minister is working on a plan, he's clearly all alone because his boss doesn't seem to care. His boss is turning his back on Quebec's biggest export sector. Is the minister so isolated within his own government? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All of Canada's exports, including Quebec, of course, are very important to our government. Personally, I have worked closely with the aluminum sector to protect our exports. Concerning aerospace, it is a crucial sector, and transitioning aerospace to the green economy can and must be part of our economic growth plan.
Caledon.
Mr. Speaker, hospitals all across Canada have done a phenomenal job of taking care of people. They do this despite staff burnout, increased operating costs for PPE cleaning, and many more. Headwater Healthcare in my riding does this and faces this every single day. But now they're being asked to be pilot sites for rapid tests with absolutely no money to operate these machines. How has it taken 11 months for us to be piloting rapid tests in hospitals during a pandemic?
Minister of Health.
Single step of the way, we've been there for provinces and territories to protect healthcare workers with massive amounts of personal protective equipment, to ensure they have the tools they need, including building up testing capacity, ensuring that they have the ability to contact trace, ensuring they have the ability to capture all that data. Over 5.7 million tests have been deployed, Mr. Speaker, across the country. 2 million to Ontario, 1 million to Quebec, over 1 million to Quebec, 650,000 to Alberta, 627,000 to BC. The list goes on, Mr. Speaker. We'll be there for provinces and territories and for the hospitals the member opposite is talking about.
The honourable member for Edmonton Riverbend.
Mr. Speaker, currently during the pandemic, we're seeing an increased emphasis on using plastic items. Many grocery stores are asking customers to keep their reusable bags at home and providing plastic bags instead. The increase in ordering from restaurants has seen an uptick in to-go packaging, including plastic cutlery. The use of masks and gloves at stores means we're having to use more disposable waste than ever before. As businesses struggle to stay open and adapt, why has the minister chosen right now to push labeling plastic as a toxic substance?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadians know that plastics are a challenge that need to be managed appropriately. The focus of the plastics announcements that we made a couple of weeks ago is about keeping plastics in our economy and not in the environment, in our lakes, our rivers, and our oceans. The vast bulk of what we announced was about enhancing recycling, ensuring that we're actually getting investments alongside regulations that will improve the amount of plastic materials that are actually recycled, completely consistent with what the government of Alberta announced with respect to turning that province into a centre for recycling opportunities going forward. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are far ahead of political parties on this. They want us to address the plastics issue.
The honourable member for Port Moody Coquitlam.
Mr. Speaker, Fraser Mills, a brewery in Port Moody, just opened in March. Unfortunately, with lockdowns, they can only serve at 30% capacity in their tap room. With reduced revenue, no rent relief, looming loans, fixed costs, and PPE expenses, the owners are depleting their personal savings to stay open because this government has failed to provide help for newly opened businesses that can't confirm revenue loss. What will the minister do to help new businesses like Fraser Mills and give them a peace of mind this Christmas?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And this gives me a great opportunity to point out to the lion's share of businesses in Canada that the rent support program is open now and businesses will start getting their money this week. That is going to support thousands and thousands of jobs across the country. And for businesses like the one we just heard of, subject to additional lockdown measures, they can get up to 90% of their rent covered. Now, we do know there are special circumstances always, and some businesses fall through the cracks. And that's where the RDAs come in. They are able to support those businesses, and I would urge that business to talk to its local RDA.
L'honorable député de Brome-Missisquoi.
Monsieur le Président, les producteurs de lait, d'œufs et de volailles font la force et la vitalité de nos régions rurales d'un bout à l'autre du pays, y compris dans ma circonscription de Brome-Missisquoi. Située à Farnham, la fromagerie des Cantons, qui fait des produits artisanaux et qui a remporté plusieurs prix pour son fromage au lait de vache Jersey, pourra en bénéficier. À la suite des accords commerciaux avec les pays de la région Transpacifique et l'Europe, notre gouvernement avait promis de compenser pleinement et équitablement nos producteurs sujets...
Interrompre une seconde, s'il vous plaît. Apparemment, place.
I'm sorry to interrupt. It seems that there's an issue with the interpretation. You do seem to have the correct the headset. Perhaps there's a connection. Could you please repeat the question? And simply ensure that it's on the right channel. Please go ahead then. Please go ahead and we'll see if it works. Thank you very much. Milk, egg, and poultry producers are a cornerstone of our rural regions throughout the country, including in my riding, Brome-Missisquoi. For example, there's the Fromagerie des Cantons, which has received several awards for its exceptional cow's milk cheese. After signing FTAs with Trans-Pacific region countries in Europe, our government promised to fully and fairly compensate supply managed producers. Can the Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food give this House more details about the compensation package? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last Saturday, we announced that out of the money promised in compensation for the two first agreements, we announced that that compensation would be delivered over 3 years rather than 7. That represents $38,000 a year for 3 years for someone with an 80-cow farm. And poultry, egg, and turkey producers will receive an investment of $691 million over 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As part of a long-standing agreement between Manitoba and Minnesota, some remote Manitobans in the southeast corner of the province receive their health care in Minnesota. When the Canada-U.S. border was closed to non-essential travel, health care was considered essential. Then suddenly the CBSA required residents to isolate for 14 days after attending necessary medical appointments. I've reached out to the health and public safety ministers to address this issue, but 5 weeks later, no results.
Shameful.
Mr. Speaker, how long do these ministers expect these residents to go without health care?
Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I do want to thank my friend from Pomochet for his advocacy and his question on this matter. Mr. Speaker, we think it's absolutely essential that people do have access to health care. I've had conversation with my counterpart in Manitoba, and in fact, the constituents that the member opposite refers to are able to cross into the United States and obtain the necessary health care that they require. But the arrangement that's currently in place at the border is when they return, because they have been exposed to the population in Minnesota, when they return, they are subject to a 14-day quarantine. And that measure, Mr. Speaker, is in place to keep all Canadians safe.
Honourable Member for Yellowhead.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal fuel standard will increase the cost of fuel by 4 cents per litre. This increase in cost will have disproportionate effects on Canadians living in rural areas, like so many of my constituents. Rural Canadians don't have the same transportation options as those in urban centres. Mr. Speaker, will this government make concessions for rural residents to even the playing field, or will they continue gouging rural Canadians?
Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Using cleaner fuels in our buildings, vehicles, and industries is one of the biggest steps that we can take to reduce emissions in this country. The Clean Fuel Standard will cut pollution by up to 30 million tons in 2030, equivalent to taking 7 million cars off the roads. It, though, is going to create enormous opportunities for farmers and companies producing renewable fuels, hydrogen, biofuels. It will encourage investments in energy efficiency that will help Canadians save money, and it will insist with the faster deployment of electric vehicles. It is something that's going to drive innovation in this country, business opportunity, and environmental sustainability.
The Honourable Member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it will drive jobs out of the country. Our energy sector continues to suffer under this Liberal government. Just this month, Imperial Oil, Nova, Cenovus, HoC Energy, and Suncor announced 3,000 layoffs across Canada. That's more Canadians who need government assistance instead of supporting their families with well-paying jobs. This government has been punishing these sectors even before the pandemic, but they doubled down with carbon taxes, the Clean Fuel Standard, and the plastics issue. Mr. Speaker, at a time when Canadians need work more than ever, why are the Liberals hurting these sectors instead of helping them?
Hear, hear. Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister.
Absolutely understands the importance of the energy sector when it comes to the Canadian economy, when it comes to Canada's exports. And that is why we have been working very, very closely with the energy sector in a joint effort to reach net zero emissions by 2050. Because the Canadian energy sector understands that we, as a country, the Alberta energy sector as a sector needs to be able to do that in order to attract investment from around the world, and we are here to support them.
Well, member for Mississauga Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday's fall economic statement was clear. The government will continue to be there for Canadians as we fight through this pandemic. But it also began the important work of setting the stage for our recovery by making a down payment on a meaningful and targeted stimulus. Can the Minister for Middle Class Prosperity and Associate Minister of Finance tell the House how the government will ensure this recovery is inclusive and focused on the quality of life of Canadians?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the honourable member from Mississauga Lakeshore for his question and for his hard work for his constituents. Smart, time-limited investments that improve Canadians' quality of life are at the heart of our plan to jumpstart the economy. This means taking the next steps toward a Canada-wide early learning and childcare system, support for youth through job placements, and alleviation of federal student loan interest. Mr. Speaker, we will also bolster training supports for those hardest hit by the pandemic, including marginalized and racialized women, Indigenous peoples, people with disabilities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for London Fanshawe.
During the first wave of COVID-19, the government decided to temporarily not profit off struggling students and froze student loan repayments and interest. Just last week, the Liberals unanimously supported the NDP motion to go a step further and put a moratorium on student loan repayments until May 31st, 2021. Students hoped it would be in the economic update. However, 6 days later, Liberals already broke their promise. Students are being forced to continue to make loan payments in the middle of the second wave. What happened between last week and yesterday that caused Liberals to break their promise to students?
Woohoo! The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we know that post-secondary students across Canada are facing unprecedented challenges. That's why we launched the suite of measures that included direct financial support, funding to double Canada student grants, a temporary moratorium on Canada student loan payments, and investments that allowed students to gain the experience they need to start their careers. As we announced in the fall economic statement, our government is significantly scaling up the youth employment and skills strategy to provide more paid work experiences for young Canadians and reducing student debt by eliminating interest on the federal portion of student loans for the next school year. Our government will continue to be there to help students through these challenging times, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. December 3rd is International Day of People with Disabilities. In Canada, people with disabilities are forced to live in legislated poverty. Benefit clawbacks prevent them from earning a modest living. Veteran Affairs Canada has a backlog of almost 50,000 disability benefit applications, and people with disabilities are still being charged outrageous fees for help applying for the CPP disability tax credit. Will the government develop a national disability strategy so people with disabilities in Canada can live with dignity?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate my colleague's excellent question. We know this pandemic has deeply affected the lives and health of all Canadians and disproportionately affected Canadians with disabilities. From the beginning, Mr. Speaker, we have taken a disability-inclusive approach to our emergency response to ensure Canadians with disabilities get the support they need. We are building on the progress made over the last months and years and committing to developing a disability inclusion action plan, which will have a new Canadian disability benefit modeled after the GIS for seniors, a robust employment strategy for Canadians with disabilities, and a better process to determine eligibility for government disability programs and benefits.
I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. We have a point of order. The honourable member for Edmonton West is rising on a point
Mr. Speaker,
of order.
if the House will give permission, I'd love to table the Ogo Blues from November 1, 2018, where the Treasury Board Secretary at the time, Scott Bryson, stated, Treasury Board has a responsibility to oversee expenditure management for the government day in, day out, in contradiction with what the current Treasury Board Secretary stated today.
This being a hybrid sitting of the House, for the sake of clarity, I will only ask for those who are opposed to the request to express their disagreement. Accordingly, All those opposed to the honourable member moving the motion will please say nay. I'm afraid we don't have agreement. Orders of the day? No other. Thank you, Ken. Orders of the day.
Orders of the day, government orders, business of supply, reprise du débat sur la motion de l'opposition.
Resuming debate on Mr. Blanchette's opposition motion with regard to support for workers in the healthcare sector. Resuming debate, the honourable member for Montcalm.